Now, but listen, this all sounds one way because it gets very horrific and fraught and dangerous after this. And I mean this. I mean this most sincerely. The experience of that night was wonderful and meaningful, and it swept me into other things that I have taken advantage of that have made me feel better on the inside. But I recognize now that moment, that night, was really the first big shock to the system when it comes to this schizoaffective thing. Hey everybody, welcome back to Jeff Bowles Central. It's kind of later in the night than I tend to do these things. In fact, you're going to see a lot of different light reflect off my face because my wife's over here playing Hogwarts Legacy. There we go, there's more light. So I'm watching her play Hogwarts Legacy behind the camera while I speak in front of the camera about some very serious stuff, even though the video hasn't started that way. So yeah, you know, I've done a lot of these these mental health vlog type things, right? And I kind of realized that there's some gaps in my personal story that I haven't really gone into, and you know, a lot of it is because a lot of it is very, very traumatic, not just for me, but for the people around me. So again, just to start the video right, number one, not proclaiming to be a mental health expert in any way, hence the Hogwarts Legacy lighting situation. Also not saying one size fits all. I'm just describing what's happened to me and kind of what's worked for me and what's not worked for me and all that stuff. And also just to lay out there that what I suffer from is schizoaffective disorder bipolar type, which is schizophrenia with the added component of bipolar. So you're talking about hallucinations, delusions, thinking things that are strange, okay? And usually being totally, if you're having an episode, a psychotic break, and that's a psychotic episode, kind of being totally controlled by it, not really having much leeway to get out, if that makes sense. So yeah, so a lot of things that have happened to me have been very traumatic, so I thought I'd kind of like, as comfortable as I feel divulging everything that happened, but I actually feel the need to, not just for my own sanity, because I don't like to pretend it's a dirty little secret, because it's stuff that happened. It existed. It happened. But also because I believe that my story can be a cautionary story. Because listen, if you or someone you know starts exhibiting this behavior, stuff like this, stuff as wild as this, as destructive and senseless and out of place, because I don't want you to be afraid of schizophrenic people or mentally ill people at all. But I don't want you to feel like the illness itself can't be blamed for some destructive, uneasy things, as certainly happened in my case. So I'll just drag you through a little bit of my history. I have suffered from mental illness most of my life. For most of my life, starting at about the age of, 10 or so. But I never had any actual psychotic symptoms until I was in my 30s. For most of that time, I was diagnosed major depressive, so I did have significant depression. But again, that was always semi-destructive. I could handle it. I could go through life. I was going through college. I met my wife, my beautiful wife over here. And you know, I was doing well in life. And then I started hitting some snags because my behavior, now that I'm looking back on it, it began to degrade. And that's really the first warning sign. If you look up schizoaffective disorder, one of the first things that starts to manifest is a breakdown in your daily behavior, just in your life skills, just in your behavior, right? And so I finished up my bachelor's degree, and I started internship at Lockheed Martin. It was a big deal. I was a technical writer. It was a nice salary for someone just out of school. I was happy with it, but things started to happen where they just stopped being able to count on me, man. Like I was a problem. I was a problem at work. Not super disruptive, not really. It's just that I took weird hours, and I sometimes worked fast and sometimes worked slow, and sometimes, it just become an untenable situation. We parted on very unfriendly terms. It's all okay. It's not like there's any grudge or anything. I don't think, not on my end, certainly. It just wasn't right for me. And about that time, I was also earning my master's degree. I started that, and I started that okay, but again, that started to break down even something like writing, which I'm very naturally skilled at, honestly. I started having a lot of trouble with it because that master's program demanded a lot. It demanded tons of short stories. It demanded a thesis novel, and I was totally capable of producing it. But for some reason, my mind kept getting away from me, and I started having episodes where I just go nuts, just for no reason. Like, I remember there was this one instance where my wife was saying I couldn't get pizza one night for dinner, and I just lost control, and I started banging my head on the carpet and shit like that. Totally out of character. Now, you really got to watch for shit like this. It seems obvious, but I guarantee you it won't be so obvious to you. Just know what the warning signs might be, so that if you see them, uh, maybe to take some steps, get this person in some counseling, maybe some diagnostic tools from some licensed mental health um, person. See, not a mental health professional. So, anyways, somehow by the skin of my teeth, I got through grad school. My teachers, the faculty, they had to cut me some breaks. I got all the work done, but I was slow about it. I would break down every couple months and need like a month or two away from everything, just so I could gather myself again. So this is when the weird stuff starts happening. A few months after I got out of grad school, I'd gotten a new job. It was like a work at home part-time job, but it was good. It suited me. I was doing better than I was at Lockheed. And on Thanksgiving night, I had a very strange experience, one of a kind experience. And I'll describe it how it seemed to me, but just remember that I have been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and that how it seems to me may not have been how it was, sadly, even though to me it's still a very real thing, a very real, purposeful, heavy thing. I was sitting in my in-laws' living room, Thanksgiving, having some pumpkin pie and looking on my phone, and I had a spontaneous awakening experience, a spontaneous spiritual awakening experience. Okay, I was looking up some stuff about New Age philosophy, New Age spiritual philosophy, just because my sister-in-law was talking about it over here, and I was checking it, just cause. And I had written, this is sloppy. I'd written some stuff. I'd written some short stories and a novel about God. Okay, so I was kind of in the mode for that anyway. And I was sitting there scrolling through this page. Something clicked in my brain, and I felt as though my body. I felt as though like a zipper ran right down my body and opened up, and I felt an incredible sense of peace and unidimensionality, what they might call a feeling of oneness. swept over me, filled me from the top to the bottom. And I went outside. I said, I gotta go outside. I gotta look. I gotta get some air. And I put on my coat and I went outside, and there was a gentle snow falling. And I just, something inside me spoke to me and told me, I guess it's not important. Just know that I felt an incredible sense of peace and oneness and stillness and unidimensionality with everything that night. And for a couple days afterward, maybe 3 or 4 days afterward, I felt the same thing. And I started a pattern of looking it up on YouTube and the internet because I was trying to understand what it was. And I started meditating because that felt natural. I felt the need to do that. Now, but listen, this all sounds one way because it gets very horrific and fraught and dangerous after this. And I mean this most sincerely. The experience of that night was wonderful and meaningful, and it swept me into other things that I have taken advantage of that have made me feel better on the inside. But I recognize now that moment, that night, was really the first big shock to the system when it comes to this schizoaffective thing, okay? Whatever the fuck it is, diagnosed, undiagnosed, you've heard some stuff about what we feel like it is, sufferers. We feel like it's aliens. We feel like it's time travelers. We feel like it's the government. We feel like it's entities, spirits, Jesus Christ, okay? So just know that the symptoms can still be a positive thing or seem like a positive thing and still end up in a negative way, because they did. Okay, so for a few months, I was very heavy into researching this. My relationship with my wife was becoming strained because I couldn't work. And I realize now I was not in a place where I could. But I'd lost my job. I was losing this new part-time job. That's bright. I started having obsessions about another person, not my wife, okay? I'm not going to go into who that was. It was a person I knew. But that caused even more strain, okay? Now, all this is really, really dangerous because I was starting to have delusions, because I started to feel like, no, not feel like. I started to hear this person. I started to hear their voice in my head, guiding me, telling me what to do in order for us to be together for the rest of our lives, because that's what we were supposed to be, because we were soulmates. We were twin flames or whatever the fuck, okay? I'm only emotional about it because it's really upsetting, because it really threw some stuff in my life that I'm still having to deal with, and I wish none of it had happened. So that's really the first time that I started hearing voices, okay? And I didn't know what it was. And I explained it to my wife, and she didn't know what it was. And that's nobody's fault. Like, the warning signs are so strange and so subtle and so unique to you. They can just go under the radar, man. Things got really bad. Things got really, really bad, and I got really out of control. I was screaming. I was raging. I was hallucinating. I was delusional. I swore to God that me and this person were supposed to be together. And my poor wife, God, she bore so much of it. And instead of getting help psychiatrically, lazily, dumb, stupid, ignorant me, I just chose to ride it out until I completely was not myself anymore, until this thing had completely taken over. And that was summer 2016. It was a really hard summer for me because even in my mind, it's just an odyssey. It's just this awful one flight from one fancy to the next. All these voices, all these guiding thoughts, all this delusion, all this craziness. Seeing things, hearing things, believing things, saying things. And there came a day where uh, there came a day where I was so afraid that I was going to die. Well, so there was an accident. I thought that my wife was trying to kill me. She wasn't, obviously. She didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know what was going on, but that's what I believed. And um, I felt like I had to get away from her. So I ran out to the car. I told her I had to get a pizza. I grabbed my keys. I ran into the car. We were screaming at each other. She chased me out there. And then I got in the car and I threw it in reverse just as she was getting in the car to stop me. And she went under the door and she went under the wheel. And she, I cracked, I believe, 6 of her ribs and perforated her lung. And caused some tissue damage in her leg. Now, it's 7 years later, and she is healed, and she is happy, and we're doing really, really good. I've been taking my meds and going to therapy just about as well as I can manage, and I've gotten a lot better, but I need you to know that it's really dangerous, or that it can be if it's not in check. If you're not doing anything to at least understand or control, or if not control, combat it, or if not combat it, understand it. I've already said understand, but that's important. Because it's not a game. So I ended up in jail for a few nights, and I ended up in a psychiatric facility for a couple weeks after that. And I came home to my empty home, which was in tatters because we'd been fighting and I'd been letting the place go. And I was by myself. My mom was there. My mom was helping take care of me at that time. Thank God for her too. Really, really thank God for the people in my life who didn't allow me to slip through the cracks, and that I'm okay doing this video for you several years later. And you know, my wife, Carrie, she came back to me. And like I said, we're doing much, much better. We're doing really good. She really, really hates when people consider her a saint. But the truth is that I do. And I really shouldn't have to explain why. So, anyways, things have progressed. Less and less of the delusional state, less and less of the combative state, less and less difficulty with daily things, though still significant, which is why I'm still not really doing the work thing. I try. Anyways, so that's my story. I think it can be helpful to be vocal about these things. Look, I don't know if you've watched the news. There's a lot of stuff on the news these days. One of the pressure points here on society is mental health because of COVID, because of our pressurized society, because we have all these duties and responsibilities and jobs and loneliness and lack of anything sometimes, and lack of duties and responsibilities. And look, there's a million and one ways to be depressed, go crazy, and lose everything in the society. So the more that we talk about it, the more that we normalize it, and that is important, okay? Normalizing something that actually is normal is just fine. Normalizing things that aren't normal, we can debate that. All right, we can debate that till the cows come home. But normalizing things that are part of the human condition, there should be no debate there. So that's how I feel. That's my story. Um, I can't say that I can say that I wish it never happened, but I can't disagree with who I am now, or the fact that I feel passionate about allowing other people to feel okay with who they are, uh, under the skin and the skin, whatever it is. So, I guess I'll catch you next time. This is Jeff Bull Central. Like and subscribe. We do mental health videos. I also put a lot of creative projects. I do video game reviews. I just do what I like to do. I'm an author. I'm a musician. Um, I have to do those things independently. Um, but I love sharing them. And I love talking about this with you because I've met some cool people doing this, just virtually. Um, and I can say that it makes me feel better. It makes other people feel better. So anytime you can, anyone who's willing to listen, tell your story, and don't be afraid necessarily. Don't be afraid. Okay, bye.